Well, good morning. It's Tidy Up Tuesday, and certainly a rough time in all the traumatic issues, disasters, natural disasters in the United States and other parts of the world. And it made me stop and wonder, what would I talk about today? Well, Floridians and Texans, and certainly those in Mexico and the Caribbean, are spending time cleaning up and don't have electricity and don't have contact with the outside world. And many who were evacuated still cannot come back home. So when I said I'd continue Tidy Up Tuesdays, that said was to Joan, a promise to myself that I would continue doing these every single Tuesday. And it is not just for those of you who thank you for being here today. Susan, bless you. Hi. Peg, thank you for joining me. So that every Tuesday it reminds me, what is my next steps? What am I meant to hear and to actually take in? So as I said, I'm Joan Silva. It is Tidy Up Tuesday. I am the Tidy Up Gal. I'm also your money dream coach because I know for years, actually since late 90s, 1998, 99, when I began my business as a financial counselor, an intuitive financial counselor, I got very clear that clutter and money was like this. Now, mind you, add to that food and time management. All three join hands in clutter. So how we behave in one or what we believe in one happens in the other. So I've been teaching how clutter affects your money since the late 90s, and realized that the Tidy Up movement was even more powerful for me, the teaching aspect of me and the belief system in me. It was kinder, gentler. Yet, yes, we're dealing with clutter, aren't we? Too much stuff, too many things. So today's topic is letting go. Why is it so hard? So let me go back a bit. I was watching a hoarding show, which my hubby refuses to watch because hoarding is in his family, many generations, family members, a grandmother, his mother, things like that. And it's too painful. And a psychologist on one of those shows said something that just stuck with me because I knew this somewhere inside that this was true, that we all have hoarding in our DNA, in our psychology, in our belief systems. The only thing that makes us different than those that are on the television show, the extreme hoarding, is a drama, trauma, something disastrous happened in their life. Now, mind you, might not be disastrous to us, but it certainly was a trauma to them. So when I was giving a talk about clutter and tidying up, a woman in the audience came up to me afterwards and shared her hoarding issues privately. And I asked her what trauma she had experienced in her life. And there were many. A loss of a husband fairly young was one of them. So I want to say that it gets kind of pushed into the forefront when we've had something traumatic. So as I see that the disasters that are happening in other parts of the world, and I'll share a few of mine, that I know that somewhere in there, when we talk about releasing and letting go and cleaning up and not keeping the stuff that we have, even if it's damaged, there are going to be many who are so harmed by this disaster, so emotionally damaged for a period of time, if not their lifetime, to deal with it. And they're going to keep the stuff. They're going to pile it up. They're going to try to protect themselves, much like we'll put weight on our bodies, or we'll not handle time very well because we're trying to cover ourselves up. And I've been through much of this myself, so I'll share that. But let me say hi to those who have come. Thank you, Linda, for saying good morning. Good morning to you. And thank you, Palma, for joining me as well. Yes, things are well here. Very humid for California. Suddenly we're having thunder and lightning, which never happens in California. And I'm watching people who weren't raised in the Midwest or East, I was raised in Wisconsin, running out to look at the lightning. And I'm like, oh my goodness, do you not know you look like a lightning rod? As it fried one of the trees in a local neighborhood. And hello, Jill. Anybody who's here, please post a question, say hi, so that I can acknowledge you. So let me go to my stories. I used to tell people for a number of years, if you don't want to be in a disaster, you might not want to hang around with Joan. Because you name the disaster, I've been in it. Raised in the Midwest, and it was tornadoes. Moved to Virginia during Hurricane Agnes and had to be evacuated from my apartment with my ex-husband. We were in Oakland Hills when the big, huge fire that happened in Oakland a number of years ago happened, and we were evacuated right in the middle of a church service. And we're like, who in their right mind would interrupt Reverend Margaret in the middle of a really great sermon? And we were being evacuated, and we couldn't even go down the hill the way we normally left or came. We had to go up into the hills further and wind our ways around to get out. And then after that, in 1989, I worked on the 31st and 32nd floor of a high-rise building. Not quite in the financial district, but right on the edge. And I was in the 1989 earthquake. Stranded there, had to walk 64 flights down to get out of the building, and it was a mess. Just a mess. And there was no BART, there was no way to get home, there was no bridge, the bridge crashed, and there was nothing I could do to get home, and had no idea where my family was, they had no idea where I was. So yes, I've experienced some of these horrific disasters, and as I watch what happens in Florida, and those of you who I really love who are living there, some evacuated, some haven't gotten home yet. My good friend Janice, we have heard from her, and she's safe. And her home is okay, but they have no power. I understand it's between 6 and 13 million. I keep hearing a different number that don't have power. Many don't have water. It's just a mess. I think, what I went through felt like nothing in comparison. Yet I remember it took me years to overcome the PTSD, and it still chains every so often. I still get anxious when I see stuff like this for others. And I had to work on my weight, because I started to put on weight at that time. I didn't connect it at the time, but I kept putting on more weight to protect myself, protect my heart, protect me from the outside world. And being I'm not an extreme introvert. I have quite a bit of extroversion, or by the way, I wouldn't probably be doing these videos. But the truth is I am an introvert. And so that was just, it made people come too close. It was too scary. And the way I got home from the earthquake, by the way, was a ferry. Ferries came from all over, much like you're seeing the first responders and like our local PG&E gas company, electric company. 16,000 had gone to Florida to help get them reinstated, not only in electricity, but help people get out of the areas that they maybe were trapped in, etc., and help rebuild. And so I took a ferry home, 2, 3 a.m. in the morning. They dropped us off in some hotel in Berkeley. And years later, I was invited on a ferry ride, a dinner ferry ride. And as we drove up to get on it, which, by the way, I'd been invited several years before, and I declined. I couldn't get on a ferry. I walked out of the car, got out of the car, and we were at the very hotel I had been dropped at the night of the earthquake. I had a huge panic attack, and thankfully, a good friend of mine took my hand. My husband was there, of course, and helped me on the ferry, and it broke through that extreme fear. So yeah, please realize that deep loss is something that chains us to keep stuff and hang on because it means so much. Even crazy, silly things. A bottle cap, plastic bottle, empty stuff, boxes, we'll keep. So why is it so hard to let go? Each of us has our own story. Each of us has our own reasons. So I want to say hi to a couple of you, Charlene and Natalie, Suzanne, Roxanne, Cindy. Hey, Palma. What did you say there? Have you heard from Janice? I found that after the death of my husband, I couldn't get rid of something that he had touched. Yes, T-shirts they wore, things that they loved. That just gives me the chills, Palma. And yes, I posted yesterday that I had heard from Janice. She has a landline that's hardwired. Otherwise, she has no cell service, no power. no electricity, no ability to get in touch, but the landline worked. And I feel blessed that I was on that list that she called. And this morning, her husband, Dwight, posted that they're safe, no power, but no complaints. The roads are a mess. So it'll be a while, but let's just send love to all of that. Andrea, thank you for coming. Hi. Angie, Patricia. So why is it so hard to let go? I'm going to tell you that we each have our own reasons. And there is no way that someone like myself can tell you to get rid of them. That is a process of release. So one of the things that Susan had said, and she's on here too, she said, when you're trying to let go of something, you might ask, is this valuable enough to keep in a tornado or a hurricane? Because it might help you, as you touch it, say, really, if I had to pick up my belongings, make them safe through a hurricane, which many people were putting them in plastic bags, putting them on second and third floors and attics, which we don't have a lot of that in California, but they were keeping their stuff safe. You could ask yourself, if I had to, within a couple of days, which by the way, earthquakes give you no warning, so you have even less of a chance to ask this question. If I was to pack up those valuable things and the only thing I could have, what would that be? And so as you hang on to that thing, that might be a good question. Is this something that if I had to evacuate and my house was harmed while I was gone, flooded, whatever it might be, the stuff that I take with me, what is the most valuable? The stuff that gets left behind and protected in whatever way, is that the most valuable? So hi, Ellen and Patricia. And Patricia said, I find it hard to let go of my kids' stuff. Oh, yes. I write a monthly magazine article. That's a published one. And I spoke about the kids left home, but they didn't take their stuff. And one of the things I brought up was that very thing, how hard it is and how we can work with letting those go. And yes, very challenging. And somehow we think our kids will want that stuff. And sometimes they do, but I'm going to tell you most of the time not. And if they do, there's ways to help them come and get it. So it's not in your area. It's not your stuff to deal with. Because again, then you have to manage the space, the time, the energy. And that is very valuable, very valuable. And let me go back to what I was saying in the beginning of this live this live video, live Facebook, is that clutter does affect your money. Whether that's you spend it so that it's going out the door on that stuff. You have so much stuff piled up or jammed in your closet you forgot you already have 3 blouses that look just like that, so you go buy another, or a pair of jeans. You know what I'm saying. When I've helped people with cleaning out their closets, I've seen that they've had 10 white t-shirts. Now, maybe if that's your kind of branding look, you like to wear white t-shirts with jeans. I do like that myself. Great. But that wasn't true for this person. She just didn't know she had that many because it was all jammed in her closet in a place she couldn't get to. So, Linda, you said, my kids are adults and I mailed them their stuff. Let them decide. Woohoo! Amen. Exactly. I've had parents actually box it up. They live close. And given them chances. I always say to hubby, who has trouble getting rid of stuff, we're very opposite in that regard. But mind you, I have my stuff too. Books are my thing. So I've said to hubby, okay, you got 2 weeks. And then a couple days go by, you have 10 days. Oh, by the way, you have 7 days. And it's done to help him realize, tick, 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 there is a deadline, there is a boundary, there is time that we need to release. And this isn't something that's important to him. He might feel that way. I will tell you, we do have difference of opinion on that definition. But the thing is that it might be a stack of magazines, papers, things he hasn't looked at in forever. When he was job searching years ago, the newspapers would pile up. And I would find, okay, you're not going to be looking at the newspaper from 4 weeks ago for a job. So I would give warning. You can do the same thing for your kids. And then you leave the box on their doorstep. So what did you say, Palma? So true. I had to do this when we were packing for evacuation. It was hard, but I needed to do it. I kept only 2 of his t-shirts. Oh, bless you, Palma. How challenging that has got to be. That's not easy. I get it. There's many things that have value to me. I look at little stuffed animals that I have had around for forever that had some meaning to them and why I got them in the first place. I have a teddy bear collection, which my video last time I was sitting in front of the little cabinet that I carried. I used to get big teddy bears too, but I've only kept the little small kind of collectibles. And as I look at that cabinet, I think, okay, Joan, you haven't even hardly looked at these in years. Why are you keeping them? So why is it so hard? Yeah, it might be that it has a memory to it. And that is the hardest, I will tell you, not easy thing to release. So don't start there. Start with easier. And the reason I say easier is then it starts to build a momentum. It gives you courage. It builds muscle. It helps you see that you've got that chance that you're not going to stay under that pile forever. So that could be, I want to tell you, usually paper is where you start. For me, books were tough, yet we began with books too. And now I'm looking at more and more of my files and thinking, wow, I have kept an awful lot of archives that I don't need to keep in my filing. Not in my office, not in my home, but in my garage in an archive folder and file cabinet. I'm thinking, wow, what is in there anyway? And start letting go. So begin with easier. So let's just say you're attached to shoes. And I have a client that loves shoes. And for the longest time, I did too. I must have had enough shoes that I could fill a whole closet. And I would say, don't start with shoes. So maybe start with skirts, which is what my sister-in-law did. She had a lot of skirts. So she just started with skirts and threw them all. Ended up with very few. Might be pants, might be blouses, might be jackets. For years, I was a corporate gal. You know, that ego thing where I was just I had the most amazing suits. I spent money on suits. I believed in classic. I believed in tailored. I'm very tailored. I like things tailored and very businesslike. Beautiful suits. Years after I was burnt out, by the way, it wasn't too long after the earthquake where I got trapped on the floor where I worked, that I left corporate forever. Many reasons for that I won't go into at this point, but I will tell you I couldn't get rid of the suits. There they were in these beautiful zipped up, garment bag holders. I'm taking up a huge amount of space in a guest closet that we needed for our office and office storage, papers and, things that we would keep for supplies. And that was very painful because it meant I had to let go of part of me to do that. And I had to admit that wasn't me anymore. I had to let go of an ego persona that I didn't even know was still there. I had so released it and thought, I don't ever want to do that ever again. It was soul sucking for me. It just killed my spirit. I had the most burnout adrenals, and for 6 months I could hardly function. I worked so many hours. I traveled as an auditor all over the United States, and I was gone all the time. Tremendous amount of hours. And I used to say, you took my right arm, now you want my left. Okay, that's not enough. Which leg do you want? And I would give it, thinking that's what I needed to do. So who thought I'd be attached to suits that no longer were me and I wouldn't wear again even in the business that I'm in? So yes, ask yourself, what do I want to let go? What will be easiest for me so that I can then step into maybe the hard or the harder and put memorabilia last. And that includes an array of t-shirts like Palma mentioned. Those are clothes and should be easier. Should is the wrong word for me. It's like, well, maybe not. Maybe out of those 10, let me put it this way, 50 t-shirts, 5 of them are memorabilia. Put those aside. They aren't part of that letting go. So I want to thank you all for coming and joining me today. Hi, Roger. It's good to have you join me. This will be recorded and put on Facebook. I also have a YouTube station. It'll eventually end up there. And I do a regular every other week Tuesday, Tidy Up Tuesdays via a newsletter. And I do drop in past videos or ones that I've done on the side and articles. Especially the monthly magazine articles that I write that are published, I am allowed to reprint those to those on my list once it's been published in the magazine. So if you want one of those, you might want to sign up for my email. Mailing to Tidy Up Tuesdays is what I call it. Isn't that amazing? So I would love to have you let me know. You can let me know here on this stream Yeah, Joan, I'd like to be on that email Tidy Up Tuesday list. And by the way, when I put you on that list, if you want to be on my regular mailings as well, which is Tidy Up and Improve Your Money Life, please let me know that too. Otherwise, I'll just put you on the Tidy Up list so that you're not getting everything that I mail. You can email me at joan@joansilva.com. My website is yourmoneydream.com. And I also take private message, even though I found out recently they're talking about dropping ads into our private messages, but I still use that as a major contact off page to communicate. So let me know there as well. So welcome to all of you. Thank you. I've had a lot of people participate this morning. I am so appreciative of that. Lisa, I thank you, dear cousin. Hope all the family's well as that Irma is heading towards North and South Carolina where we have some family. Don't know if you've heard from anybody. Let them know I'm thinking of them. My cousin, her husband's sister is down in that area and her family. So welcome, welcome. And next Tuesday, not sure what I'll talk about. I kind of go with what's happening in the energy and what I hear and what I feel and what I sense and what people have been saying to me about their tidying up. And somehow the disasters just spoke deeply to me because right now the tidy up stuff for them is huge and it's way more than tidy, isn't it? But all that emotion is going to come forth for them to deal with their stuff. And is this the time to finally let go? Or will I choose, because it so bothered me and so hurt me, that I'm going to hang on to it? It is our choice, isn't it? Be well, those of you who are in Florida, Texas, in any of those very awful areas right now that are struggling. Be well, and your families. And I do send my heart to yours. And thank you for joining me for Tidy Up Tuesdays with Joan Silva.